Hello, welcome to another Sunday evening, afternoon edition of Kardec Radio and my program, coming to you every Sunday at 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern in the United States time zone and all time zones in between and the time zones around the world. Welcome to our program. Again, I want to explain this is we are live streaming on Facebook, and at the same time, simultaneously, we are streaming on Kardec Radio. Kardec Radio is a app that you can put on your iPhone or your Android phone. You can listen to Spiritist programs 24 hours a day. I use it on my phone at night, and when I sit and after I meditate, whatever, I'll listen to whatever program is on. It's always a good program on Kardec Radio. We're getting more and more listeners every week. It's growing remarkably. Thank you for coming in and tuning in to Kardec Radio and telling your friends. We are also on Kardec Facebook page. So it's Kardec Radio Facebook page. You can come to that, join the page. You can actually see me talk if that's what you want. And we have our program again on every Sunday. There's other programs, Vanessa and other people that come and have programs on Kardec Radio and as well as Kardec Facebook page. And my programs, every time I finish one, I put it on, I save it, I put it on my YouTube channel. And then you get to my YouTube channel by going to my blog, nwspiritism.com. And on the right-hand side, there's a space to sign up to my, subscribe, I should say, to my YouTube channel or my BitTube channel. The BitTube channel, I would actually recommend. That is always what's the latest there. And you never know. The BitTube doesn't seem to be censoring speech lately, unlike YouTube, which you never know what they'll censor or not. So, again, we are here because of Spiritism. The best thing that ever happened to my life, I hope happens to your life too. It all comes from the Spirits book from Allan Kardec in the 1850s. And he codified, he's called the codifier of Spiritism, because what he did is he took messages from high spirits, the Spirit of Truth, as promised by Jesus Christ in the New Testament. I will send you a consoler and the Spirit of Truth to tell you more. I paraphrase that. And they did in 1850. Almost 2,000 years afterwards, we were deemed technologically and culturally fit to hear that message. And what's great about Spiritism is we are not talking about a static message. It's just like, people say, no, everything has to be done the way the Old Testament, the New Testament. No, that's not what Spiritism tells us. Things change. What Spiritism tells us is that only the messages of love and charity and fraternity are eternal. Oh, hello, Soul. Good evening to you. So that's why we're told more and more things, right? And it goes on. It starts from Allan Kardec, who codified Spiritism, to Leon Denis, the Francisco C. Xavier, the Reverend G. Val Owen, Devaldo Franco, all other mediums, Yvonne Pierre, other mediums that receive messages, who are known as Spiritist mediums. They will get messages and more information from higher spirits who will tell us things about ourselves, of what we need to do, what we need to understand about our life on Earth. Why are we on Earth? And this is why I've been going through my whole series from my book, How to Live. And it's all based upon a short poem, 24 verses from Andre Luiz. And what I did in this book, How to Live, is I tried to understand what was meant by each verse, very short, like we're talking about verse 13. It's chapter 13 in my book. And there were 3 words, Oblivion of Evils. And what I attempt to explain is, what does Andre Luiz and the spirit mentors around Chico Xavier, when he psychographed this, what do they mean by oblivion of evils? And this is something we have to really be careful with. Because for the human race to collectively ascend to a superior level from living on a planet of atonement, where we must repair our past mistakes, this is planet atonement here is on Earth, via karma to a planet of regeneration in which we shall live in harmony with each other. Greed, envy, hate must be greatly diminished. We must remove evil. But what is evil? And that's important. Each person has their own idea of what is bad and good. We have a tendency to label anyone and anything we don't like as evil. If everything that was labeled as evil by each individual on our globe was marked for removal, then almost the entire population would disappear. Think our politics today. There's two camps. There's even two types of media there in the United States, and I'm sure it's the same as other countries. And they just label that person as evil. No, that's not necessarily true. Don't buy into that rhetoric. Don't think that someone who is saying something you do not agree with is evil. Let's talk about that for a second. When we stop freedom of speech, because the spirit world created Western civilization so we could have freedom of speech, we're here on earth to learn to filter everything through our conscience. And we have to hear everything. I have news for everybody. The earth is not a safe space. I'll say it again. The earth is not a safe space. We are here to hear everybody's opinions, and we may disagree with them completely. We may think they're terrible, but we are here to hear them. We're not here to censor, or as happened in Nazi Germany, the Soviet Union, China. Even today, China is now censoring and putting people in re-education camps, right? North Korea, where they kill people for different thoughts. Cuba, where they've enslaved people for different thoughts. All these things, that is not correct. People have the right to their opinion, even if it's wrong. Now, why? Because we are here to filter everything that is said through our conscience. We are here to learn to use our brain to know what is good according to that divine gift given by God to each one of us and the Spirit and our Lord Jesus. Because when we were reincarnated, we don't have memories of our past life, but we have two wonderful gifts. We have our conscience and our instinct. And we have to learn to weigh everything against our conscience. And as we go through life after life, our conscience is like a law library that as we get more experience, we understand all the gray areas, right? Because there's no such thing as black and white. Let's talk about what happens in a society that just shuts out all discourse. Think of a good example, Yugoslavia. Now, maybe people don't even recognize Yugoslavia because it used to be composed of Serbia, not Montenegro, and Croatia, and other in Bosnia Herzegovina. So, but what happened? They completely controlled speech, and Yugoslavia is composed of a lot of Christians and Muslims. And when that broke up, the people started just being terrible. The Christians, Muslims started being terrible. They had great civil wars. They've hurt a lot of people. It was horrible. Now, why was that? Because they were not allowed. The people who were not nice should have been allowed to say mean things. Not that I want to say good things about that, but they should have been allowed to say mean things about the other group. So people could think about that. No, that's not true. I know this person. He or she's a Muslim or Christian, and they're fine people. That's why ideas have to be out there. Even ignorant, stupid ideas have to be allowed to percolate amongst our society. And I know it's not easy, but that's something we have to do, within reasons. But we cannot just censor everybody like YouTube is doing, Google is doing, Twitter, social media, Facebook. They are doing everybody on this planet a disservice because we are meant to hear everything. Now, that doesn't mean that someone can yell fire in a theater, right? Because that's usually the definition of the end of free speech, right? That, those things you cannot do as recognized in the limits of free speech by the United States Supreme Court and Constitution. So that's what so when I talk about, and when I believe when Andre Luiz wrote Oblivion of Evils, that doesn't mean whatever you think is evil. I should go out there and just whack everybody who I think is evil. No. So now let's talk about what I believe is meant by Oblivion of Evils. So the spirit Andre Luiz must have meant something specific when he communicated his poem Inner Peace to Francisco C. Xavier, the late great Spiritist medium from Brazil. And the poem laid out how each person could obtain inner peace. And of course, this is the 13th verse. Now, the Spirit Emmanuel tells us, this is what he talks about evil. Evil does not actually come from the world, but from the people who inhabit it. The earth itself has always been good, from its soil, spring, delicately fragrant lilies, to its maternal nature in a repository of wonderful miracles that are repeated every day. So hence, as the Old Testament told the story of Adam and Eve, it was humankind that introduced evil. We, as I'm sure everybody here listening, we are the culprits. We are the purveyors of cruelty and depravity. We are the transmitters of what is called evil. But before leaving home with a bulldozer and destroying anything and anyone you consider evil, we should look to the spirits to what is understood what they meant by the word evil. So, the spirit Zabdiel, whom the Reverend G. Val Owen communicated with in the 1910s, explains the concept of goodness and evil. And this is what's wonderful. And the Reverend G. Val Owen's books are just, they are just amazing. And in fact, I did my whole three. They're on the bookshelf behind me. Heaven, heaven, the spirits, and how the spirits, heaven and below, the spirits and the spirit universe, and how the spirits guide us. I wrote 3 books, all talking about what the Reverend G. Owen did in his numerous messages from the spirits in the early 1900s. Hello, Nora. And it's just, and I tell you, it is such a good book. And I took those and I collated them in different different themes, right? What they talk about heaven, what they talk about the education of heaven, they talk about the power, the attributes of spirits. And I believe these books in English, because Reverend G. Owen was an Anglican vicar, Church of England, for many people who may not know. They talk about a lot of things in Spiritism that are not really talked about in the books by Chico Xavier. It really exposes kind of the higher levels of heaven and the process of heaven, and more about the attributes and the spirits, what and how we change and how we evolve and learn from level after level after level. It tells us so much. So let's see what the Spirit Zabdiel tells us, that good and evil are conditions of attitude toward God. In essence, he stated, your perspective regarding the love of God determines the amount of benefit or harm any action we take, which sooner or later reflects back on us. Now, that's karma, right? A reaction has a reaction. And of course, what Allan Kardec said in the Spirits book is, once people really take to heart, because there's Buddhism and other religions that believe and understand karma, but do people really in their heart know it's true? And when they know it's true, people will know that any action we take is going to have a reaction, and that's for good actions too. So Zabdiel presents a universe full of the supreme spirituality's love, and this constant permeates all. When we attempt to block out the radiated love from God, this is when evil persists. And Zabdiel illuminates the concept. This is what he says. The very intensity of the love of God becomes terrible when it meets with an opposing obstacle. The swifter the torrent, the greater the surf around the opposing rocks. The greater the heat of the fire, the more complete the dissolution of the fuel which is cast into it and on which it feeds. And although to some such words may seem horrible in the saying of them, yet it is the very intensity of the love which energizes and flows through the creation of the Father, which, meeting opposing and disharmonious obstruction, causes the greater pain. Even in the earth life, you may test and prove this true. For the most bitter of all remorse and repentance is that which follows on the realization of the love borne to us by the one we have wronged. So what is he saying? This is so true. And we see this in people all over, in ourselves, especially as children, right? Oh, my parents did this. I hate them. And then, of course, no, they love you and you feel really terrible, right? It happens all over. So what he's telling us is holding back love and God's will is like an attempt to dam an ocean. It may work for a short period, but in time, the barrier will fail. Therefore, evil is the absence of love. Where love is allowed, there is good. Where love is resisted, there is evil. And we see this in so many people. And we see this now. No, you can say, no, you can tell me, no, that's Brian. That's not true. I see people do evil all the time. I don't see any pushback. I don't see the waves way over them. Now, one we must think about is we must think about the time period of being an immortal spirit versus our perception of time here on earth. And you see that in the Old and the New Testament, where a spirit, an angel or spirit will tell, this will happen, right? And then it takes years for that to happen. And again, here too, it takes years, decades, hundreds of years, centuries, and millennia. It will all happen. Love will conquer all. But in our little perception of time, where, for a kid, a day is a long time. For us as an adult, maybe a month or a year, 5 years is a long, long time. Our perception of time is so much shorter, right? And you have to step out of your physicalness here on this life on earth and think about your life as an immortal spirit. And you've already gone through who knows how many lives, right? And think about centuries. Then it all starts making sense. This is what Spiritism tells us. We have to step out of ourselves. We have to climb that mountain, look down on ourselves to really understand where we are, where we've been, and where we're going. So Zabdal analyzes evil. Blindness is the inability to see, but not only is there such a condition as blindness, there are also people who are blind. Blindness is a negative condition, or less. It is the condition of one who has 4 senses instead of 5, but real it is. Nevertheless, yet it is only when one who is born blind is told of the sense of sight that he begins to feel the lack of it. And the more he understands the lack of it, the more his lack is felt. So it is with sin. It is usual here to call those who are in darkness the undeveloped. That is not a negative term, which would be retrogress. So of both, I say, not lost, but lack. The one born blind has not lost a faculty, but lacks it. What is he telling us? Hence, when a person commits an evil act, it is because... Oh, Soul says there's something wrong with the transmission. I can't hear you very well. Let me look. Have other people not hearing me very well? I see the microphone. My microphone looks like the volume is okay. I'll speak up a bit. Let me turn this up. Anyone else? Can you write a comment and tell me? Because it looks like this is okay, but I'm not sure. These things can happen. Oh, I'll keep going then. If it's my fault, I apologize. I'll listen to it when I'm done. I record the program. Oh, Noah says I can hear. Okay, so it may be Soul's internet connection. That certainly can happen. Thank you, Nora. Okay. So I just said what Zebdal said. It's the lack of it. So what he's saying is when a person commits an evil act, it is because of his or her incapability to discern the good, the correct action to take. It is the absence of understanding the presence of love and how that should influence every decision we make. Most spirits and all people are a balance of good and bad characteristics. We've been told this many times in Spiritist literature. There's no such thing as an all good person or an all bad person. Everyone has a balance. So there's not a living soul that's composed entirely of evil. We are all a mixture. We travel through life committing acts that we regret. And Zabdal explains why. This is what he says. Yet you may say that people do go back and fall from grace. Those who do are such as those who are partly blind or of imperfect sight, colorblind as to one or more colors. These have never seen perfectly, and their lack is only unknown to them until opportunity offers, and then their imperfection is manifest. For a colorblind person is the one whose sight is, in little or more measure, undeveloped. It is only by using his vision that he maintains what vision he has. And if he neglects to do this, then he retrogresses. So with the sinner. So we're all on this journey. We're all on this journey to remove our blemishes, to remove our primitive emotions, and to understand what we're doing wrong, right? And to get more and more that feeling of the love of God. And how do we get the feeling of the love of God? We start really listening to our conscience. So to start that journey, to begin the steps towards the oblivion of evils, we must start to tell the truth, especially to ourselves, right? Only then can we identify what gaps within needs to be filled with love. So thank you. So yes, I will post this to the YouTube channel and the BitChute channel, and you can certainly watch it. I'll do that tonight. I always do that right afterwards. So hopefully that will be much better for everyone. So we have to start with ourselves, and we got to tell ourselves the truth about ourselves. And it's hard, right? So the spirit Joanna de Angelis, points out, and most of her, actually all of her that I've seen as far as her messages, all come through Divaldo Franco's books, just to let you know. The spirit Joanna points out that the habit of lying holds far more hidden dangers than most people suppose. This is what she says. Vestiges of the mendacity phase linger in immature adults, causing them to continue to distort reality to please their senses, thoughtlessly creating vexing situations that make them and others suffer. Afterwards, free of what could have been the unfortunate consequences of their act, and even having promised themselves that they would not yield to such vice again, they lie anyway due to their conditioning. Infantile insecurity is evident in individuals who refuse to grow, believing they attract attention with this troubling behavior. Lying must be rejected under whatever form it may appear because of the moral harm it causes, for it leads to defamation, slander, and a whole string of awful psychological and ethical dystonias in the social dynamic. Liars are depthlessly sick individuals, yet they elicit contempt on account of their behavior. No one believes what they say, even on the rare occasion when they actually tell the truth. It is completely natural for them to change the content or presentation of the facts, which they reveal in an unreal way, hoping to manipulate persons with despicable use. So what is Joanna telling us? She is saying that people that fall into the habit of lying for many factors, but one of the most prominent is being raised in a dysfunctional family. To eradicate that which is false within ourselves, we must move to embrace the truth. So as I'm talking, right, what am I saying about the oblivion of evils? It starts with us. It starts to open ourselves to the light and love of God. And it starts to analyze ourselves, right? As Jesus said, don't look at the sliver in the other person's eye, look at the plank in your eye. So this is what she says. The truth must be spoken naturally, kindly, unpretentiously, without imposition, but also without being falsified, without losing the power of its content. So in essence, what she's saying is we have to condition ourselves to the truth. We should read and study and learn the Spiritist doctrine, examine the precepts we should follow, and promote good habits. Once harmony is restored within us, we shall have no need to lie or distort. Haven't we all in childhood? I mean, of course, when you love the little kids, when you say, did you do that? And they say, no, of course, you know, they're lying, but we grow out of that, right? In especially teenage years, you start seeing it's not a good idea. Now, those within dysfunctional families is much harder because you almost have to lie in order to protect yourself. And that's a much harder burden for those people. Again, another reason why we have to have reincarnation. Who can become perfect in one life, especially when so many people are born in such difficult circumstances? But eventually, most of us learn, not everyone, there's many people out there that have not got this message, is that if we just continue to tell the truth, that doesn't mean we say mean things to people like, you're ugly. No, that's not what it means. But, we try to be polite on that. And, if we can't say something good, try not to say it if, the situation demands it. But we should condition ourselves to saying the truth, even if it makes us look bad sometimes. Because what happens, and I know that it's just important, and also telling the truth and speaking naturally, right, is also means don't participate in malicious gossip. Don't do that. And once you start getting rid of that, you will be astounded how your harmony is restored within you, right? And you really don't feel a need to lie or distort. So if we install a regimen, right, following the lead of Buddhism, and this is, of what they say is of right thinking, right talking, and right acting, really wise words, right? Right thinking, right talking, and right acting. Of course, Buddha was, sent here by Jesus Christ, just like Socrates and others, Zarathustra. It came here to tell us that Confucius, another one, came here to tell us, right? And every religion says, talks about the golden rule: do unto others as you do unto them, and that's all full of taking the evil out of us, right? And Buddhism says it right: right thinking, right talking, right acting, and we can set the stage for the next step to fill in our blank spots, our character, with the bright light of love. So, how do we fill in what is lacking? How do we get this feeling of love? What do we do? So to begin with, we must realize that we are on earth in this moment in time, are in the process of developing our good sides and removing our base emotions. We are all partially colorblind when it comes to perceiving the light, the love of God. We are on earth because we need to train ourselves to fully comprehend the love which envelops us and how to channel that love for our benefit and the benefit of others. The process whereby we grasp what we have heretofore missed is our trials on earth. Our choices during those trials sets us up for where we will land in the spirit world and our course which we must follow in our next life. Zabdal tells us it's only by free will that the person is held responsible for both good and evil in his heart. So, through our trials, we build up a range of experiences, like a law library that contains case histories, which are used to guide the verdicts in future cases. We too deposit what we have learned into our conscience, hence our need for multiple lives in multiple cultures. And Zabdal reinforces this point. This is what he says. Also, let it be remembered that what seems to be good or evil to one man does not of necessity so appear in the eyes of another. Especially this is true of those of different creed and habit of thought and manner of life and community. What therefore is possible in the matter of distinction between these two is that the broad and fundamental principles which underlie each other should be grasped clearly, and that the minor shades of these qualities should be entrusted to the future when they will be gradually made more plain. So in essence, he's telling us the accumulation of knowledge to navigate through the shady maze of moral behavior is not lost upon entry into the physical life. We are given the infinite database of our conscience. So remember that. So whereas we may not be aware of searching for the correct answer, the feeling of anxiety in the pit of our stomach or the notion that we just did something wrong is the result of our brain retrieving thousands of years of results and notifying us of the findings. Let's talk about that. So remember, we are composed of spirit, paraspirit, and our physical body. And our spirit, there's just, there's a small pipe that can go through from our spirit to our brain. And our brain is really not capable of comprehending everything we knew in the spirit world. But that's like when people dream, right? And they don't really understand the dream. A lot of it's nonsense. And you may have done something very important in the spirit world, but you only just get a little bit of it because you can't really interpret what happened in this world without time. And this world's just so much greater and superior than our 3D physical world. But I'll go back to the but we do have a feeling. So I always tell people when they talk to me about dreams or something, I go, well, how did you feel? Did you feel better? Because when you think about conversations or things you saw, it's very imperfect. But usually in your dreams is your feeling is really the main compass. If you feel like uplifted or more relaxed, that means the message was given you to do something, or the message was saying something's good or something like that. It was good, right? And that's why the same happens is our conscience. When we think of something, okay, this is the I'm going to do this. But if your thinking of that action gives you a pit, something wrong in the pit of your stomach, right? And you don't feel good about it, even though you're really trying to rationalize you should do that because it's going to be very beneficial to you, right? It's going to make you look good and make you more wealthy, whatever. But there's something telling you not to do that. That is really, if we can defeat that in our lives, that's one of the most important things. And when we go against our law library in our minds, our conscience, if we deny that or we do something deliberately wrong, which you see people do all the time, and you actually feel sorry for them. It's like, when you hear politicians on TV and they tell you things, and they're saying that just to be elected or whatever. It's so sad. They must have immense stress. And this is why we have stress. When we say something we know that is wrong or do something that's wrong, our conscience sends a signal out to all corners of our body, alerting us that we are on the wrong track. And all of us know that, right? The accumulation of these messages weakens our system and throws out internal harmony into disarray. This is why studies have shown that people who are more spiritual and are aware of their moral boundaries are healthier. And this is why so many people are not spiritually healthy in this culture, because our culture is one of materialism and cultural relativity. Moral relativity, actually, is what I should say. And we know that's nonsense. Just as was told to us by Joanna de Angelis and other spiritists, that some things people do, some things differently, right? But that doesn't mean it's right to murder. It's right to be absolutely mean to people. It's right for all this terrible behavior. No, it's not right to loot. It's not right to steal, ever. Everybody knows that. That is the constants in our conscience, and everybody has it, no matter how much they want to deny it. And of course, in order for us to fulfill and expand and enforce our conscience, we have to have multiple lives. That's why we're here. We go through life after life. And so therefore, for a shorter or longer period, sometimes, often indeed for thousands of years, as we reckon time on earth, a person can maintain or not listen to their conscience, but no one who is created is able to continue to do so everlastingly, right? That is the way it's going to be. So there are stories by spiritual literature of person, in the lower zone of the dark abyss for 10,000 years. That person will not be there for eternity. Eventually, they will improve themselves. There's those of us that have been what they call parking, right? We've been life after life. We'll be parked at that level. We come up. We always look for the greater wealth, which I've been told I've done. We look for getting wealth and power, luxury, etc. And we just never ascend spiritually. But eventually, we will go through the tests and trials to help us. And of course, that's because Most of us, we don't learn the easy way, right? Our life is not sufficient to fully embed living by the golden rule to the foundation of our character. I have been told by spirits writing through mediums that I have failed again and again. And I was placed in a position of authority, as I said before, and instead of attending to my flock and being good to them, I used them for my personal gain. And for that, I am certain I've maintained my stubbornness for thousands of years, much to my regret. I am grateful for the overwhelming force of love that is slowly breaking down the walls of my selfishness. Only by living through harsh realities was I able to understand that the absence of love, of caring, of compassion sets the stage for great wrongs. My lack of virtue, caused by my ignorance, is gradually being righted. I'm a long way off, but now I welcome the journey. I look forward to learning to live amongst my fellow beings with a sense of love and purpose. And the first step is to listen closely to that governor in your head, your conscience. Attempt to follow what feels right. It is not easy since there are many cases that are still uncertain to most incarnated souls. But as Zabdiel says, we experience more lives, our moral compass will expand. And Zabdiel leaves us with this message. This is what he says. Let us, therefore, having looked on this phase of aberration for man's natural walking with God, now look the other way in the direction in which all things are tending. For truly, evil is but a transitory phase, and whether it passes away from his economy in whole or no, from every individual, most surely it will pass away when its opposing force is spent, and be left free to follow on in the glorious train of those who brighten as they go from glory to further and greater glory. His message is wonderful. What he's telling us, as we shed our blemishes and ascend in the spirit hierarchy, we are given more responsibilities. And in the spirit realm, where faith and thought create reality, power is parceled out to those who have completed the requisite training. This is why we're on this planet. So we may one day complete our training and contribute to Earth and other worlds in helping the souls rise. And I cannot state this enough. On Earth, we are like in elementary school. We are being trained to be civilized. Civilized spirits, also called angels, right? When people see angels, they're these bright angels, and even in NDEs, they, if they touch them or hug them, they just feel this love, right? Those are civilized spirits. They have removed most of their ignorance of love. I mean, no one's perfect, as I said before, but they have risen above all the pettiness that we here on Earth still participate in. And I'm still there too. I'm not going to say I'm not anywhere near perfect. I've got still a lot to learn and not be judgmental and petty and think ill of people just because I see that they look like a certain way. I'm still fighting that. But that is important. And that's when angels and people, even in NDEs are if you've had visions up there, you've seen this bright object, that brightness is the reflection of love in the atmosphere sent by God. And that angel, that higher spirit, has trained themselves through life after life. They've gone through exactly what we have gone through. They've been petty, they've been ignorant, they've been mean, they've been greedy, they've done bad things. Even Jesus has gone through this. They've all gone through this training period so they can graduate and actually contribute, right? It's like here on Earth, most of us, when we go into heaven, we must educate ourselves. We can contribute somewhat, but you really have to graduate pretty high level to contribute to the creation of new universes, of new planets, of developing, of guiding the environment of a planet, guiding the souls of races, of animals that can someday be able to evolve to take a human soul and have free will. These great things all take a lot of work on our part. And in the land where thought is action, you cannot have bad or petty thoughts. And that's what we're here being trained. And in that training is tough. This training is like boot camp, right? We have to go through that where the sergeant is up on, on the top, and you're going through the mud under the barbed wire, and he's spraying live wire, live ammo at you. This is life. This is what I'm saying. There's no safe spaces on earth. Don't censor people. Listen to it. This is all part of the training. Therefore, each little step we make is important. It is easy and simple to promise ourselves to be better, to remove the primitive urges which moves us. But it really takes dedication and perseverance. And don't forget, we shall be tested repeatedly to determine if we are paying lip service to casting off evil influences. In the book, Jesus in the Home, by the spirit Neo Lucio, recounts when Jesus told the tale of the 4 tests to his disciples. And they were talking about the story of Job and his trials. When Jesus brought up the example of a man in the city of Nineveh, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that wrong, right? The man was considered a paragon of virtue and devotion to God. The news of this man even reached the higher spheres and the archangels who resided in the high levels of heaven. It was decided to send a series of tests to this most pious man. And this is what Neo Luiz has told us. In order to do so, the teacher angels, working for the Most High, sent 4 basic detectors of righteous individuals: want, wealth and power, anger. So want, wealth, power, anger. Each came down in its own time in order to perform the indispensable trials. Want, which is always the first to appear in such cases, approached the great believer and made its presence felt in a number of different ways. By afflicting him with hardships, obstacles, illnesses, and abandonment by loved ones. However, the devout man, full of confidence, knew the messenger was a heavenly worker and defeated it, proving himself to be increasingly stronger to the virtues of what he had become a model. Now, after want came wealth. The man experienced the opposite of the lack of everything, but faced with great riches, he didn't hoard because he knew the wealth was from God and not his. He used his money for constructive purposes. He built for the community. He was fair to his employees and gave to charity. Next came power, the next test. And think of all the people we know. I hear this is why, again, the spirit realm says the rich, which also means power to some people, that's the hardest trial. So next came power. Immense power over the lives of others was bequeathed to this virtuous man. He handled the temptations of power with true grace. He didn't allow himself to become overbearing, dictatorial, or arbitrary. He tried to instruct instead of command. Now, think of any of us. If we were rich and powerful, could we still be humble? And I hope in our minds we think, yeah, we could. But it is tough, right? Because you have all these people always wanting to take advantage of you, or worse, telling you what you want to hear, right? Flattery. Everyone flatters a rich person because they think they can get something. And we see that all the time. We see that with all these internet billionaires and these, rich people who just, and they all get together and tell themselves the same thing. And that's part of the reason why we have such terrible censorship of free speech, is because they're trying to manipulate all of us so they have more and more power. They don't probably think of it that way. They probably think they're doing a great moral job, but they're really not. They're really helping themselves by trying to make themselves look good and have other people and be more listening to what they want to do. They're misusing their power. Now, the last one came anger. So triumphant and happy, this believer was finally visited by anger. In order to probe his spiritual state, the invisible teacher made use of a weak and unlearned servant to touch his self-esteem by talking with obvious disregard about a private matter. Although what he said was, in fact, true, it constituted real disrespect towards anyone of such a social position and inarguable dignity. The devout man could not help himself. An intense wave of blood spread across his face, his flushed face, and he lost control of himself by hurling hurtful words and wounding family members and servants, and undermining everything he had done. It took him a number of days to regain his composure, but by then the anger had already laid bare his inner spirit, showing that he still had a lot of work to do. Anger notified the Lord that this particular son, enrolled in the school of illumination, still had a long way to go in the purifying experience in order to earn a position in the glorious vibrations of higher life. So I purposely talk about this at the end of my talk of Oblivion of Evils, so that each and every one of us recognizes that this is a task of multiple lifetimes. When I first read the 4 tests, I laughed, right? It was a sad laugh, a resigned laugh, because I knew I'd failed want. Even growing up middle class in this present life, I always wanted more. Wealth and power. I've already talked about how I found out I had abused power to gain wealth in previous lives. So, I had a trifecta of losses, right? I've already known that I failed the first 3 tests. Then I thought about anger. And when I first, talked about this a couple of days before I read the story, I was sitting in my comfortable chair thinking about how well I've been doing. I was encouraged by my progress and trying to remain calm in many circumstances to date. And I was handling the big picture problems pretty well with a stoic posture, and I was trying to stay calm. But suddenly, out of the blue, my dog, who was sitting next to me, let out this ferocious bark, loud and piercing. I was startled, and then I just went whack, and I just hit the poor thing on the head. And so it was so much for my control of anger. So hence, I have failed every test, and yet I believe I'm still improving and I'm making progress. I feel better by learning about why I am here and about life in the spirit realm. And hopefully someday, I hope to be like Socrates. When Socrates was leaving his house with his pupils, his wife was yelling at him loudly and uncontrollably. And just before he was out of reach, she hurled water at him, got him wet. And as he left, he calmly told his students, there is always rain after the thunder. And look how he handled that. He didn't get mad at her. He just said, he just understood that that's her, right? Nothing you can do about it. And that, she'll learn, right? And he just, okay, that happened. Such wisdom, such calmness. I don't know if I can do that. I'm sure it will take many, many, many more lives for me. But that is really what we need to say at the end of Oblivion of Evils. We start with ourselves. We understand. We are fair. We are honorable. We don't censor people. We don't yell at people. And again, this is all in my book, How to Live Inner Peace Through Spiritism. And please, everyone who's watching, share this video, share this Facebook Live. Please tell your friends about my site, nwspiritism.com. Please tell them about the YouTube and the BitChute channel. You can subscribe. And as I say, I have all of my talks on Facebook channel, on the Facebook page, Kardec Radio Facebook page. I've loaded it on the YouTube. I have other talks. I've got quite a few videos on NDEs. I have a lot of short videos, 4 minutes to 6, 8 minutes on different aspects of Spiritism. So there's something for everybody there. And I just wish you all the wonderful rest of the Christmas season. And again, remember, this is the main book, the Spirits book. You can get this book in PDF. And also on my site, nwspiritism.com, you can click on his picture. It'll take you to the EDI CEI bookstore. You'll find all, Spiritism books right there. Of course, you can find them on Amazon. And as I said before, on Allan Kardec, you can look up Allan Kardec and space PDF, and you'll find really almost everything he has under PDF. You can find a lot of books by Leon Denis and others on PDF. So it's, there's a lot of things that you don't have to spend anything. So I just want to tell everybody, of course, then my books are on the right-hand navigation side. I have them on Kindle and in paperback. And my book, Spiritism 101, The Third Revelation, is only 99 cents on Kindle. So there's always that. And also on my Facebook page, Spiritism and the Spirit World Around Us, under the little Files tab, I have Spiritism 101. It's on PDF, so you can download it. It won't cost you anything. And if you need to, you can always send me an email or something. Go to my site, go to contact, say, please send me Spiritism 101 in PDF, and I will be happy to do that for free. But it's also posted right on my Facebook group, Spiritism and the Spirit World Around Us. I want to thank everyone. We had a wonderful talk, and I will post this to the YouTube channel. Thank you. God bless all of you.